Today we are joined for a second time by Michelle Impey, the CEO of Save the Kiwi. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you. It's great to be back, guys.
Take us on a journey, what you've experienced over the last 20 years since starting at Save the Kiwi. Like, how has the sector changed and evolved over the past 2 decades?
Yeah, it's been quite an incredible journey. And I mean, obviously the sector commenced before I joined it. In the early years when I started this role, I mean, it was me as one sole employee. We had Bank of New Zealand. They raised funds for us. We distributed the funding. And it was really the early days. So it wasn't until, the 90s that we really knew we became aware that Kiwi were declining, right? So the early phase was a research phase of understanding the agents of decline, how many we still had left, where they were. And of course, those early days research is what led us to understanding that stoats and chick survival was one of the biggest issues. So in the early years when I joined this role, we were still kind of coming out of that research phase. So Department of Conservation had set up their national network of 5 Kiwi sanctuaries. And some of it was, as you'd expect a sanctuary to protect birds. So on the South Island with our 2 rarest birds, that was what it was for. But on the North Island with the 3 sanctuaries, it was about testing and trialing different methods of pest control. So the Tongariro Sanctuary, 1080, which has led us to the prescription to protect Kiwi with 1080 and knowing that they survived through toxin operations, PS. The Whangarei Kiwi Sanctuary did Operation Nest Egg quite a bit, and on the Coromandel, it was a trapping network. So it helped really drive what we understand about methods we use to control Kiwi, which have evolved, of course. So that was happening. It was the beginning of the growth of the community sector. So there's some community projects like Project Kiwi on the Coromandel is our longest enduring community-led project. But in the early days of distributing funding grants, we gave as much money to Department of Conservation as we did to the community because there just simply weren't the quantity of community and Māori-led efforts that there are now. And so over the years, of course, that has completely changed. That was the beginning of what is this incredible groundswell and momentum that we all know, where this is just kind of baked into our ethos. So it's been an incredible movement of community and Māori-led conservation. The predator-free 2050 vision, I would say, probably injected a new sense of energy. It became kind of that light at the end of the tunnel. And whether we achieve it by 2050 or whether we achieve it at all, it has injected new energy and it's really helped to drive innovation and new ways of doing things. So, I mean, that's another big change over the last 20 years, just the technology and the knowledge we've got, to have camera traps for a couple $100. You can put a piece of technology in the field, a motion censored camera pointed at a burrow, pointed at a trap. It will tell you more than a peanut butter filled chew card could probably ever tell you. So, we've got AI technology that is now hitting the field. We've got long life lures. So quite an evolution. So in summary, no abatement to the interest and energy coming from on the ground for people who want to do this work, and new tools and knowledge to help increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of it.
Wow. I find it so fascinating that you've seen the rise of all this, like the community conservation, the solid science behind what is causing Kiwi predation and death and what needs to heal, the evolution of the projects. I didn't know that you were actually providing funding to DOC in the early days.
Yeah.
And the evolution of predator-free 2050 and the tech. Like, we're relative newcomers. What have we been in for like 6 or 7 years in this space?
Something like that.
It feels like this has always been the case. Like, this is all like predator-free 2050s evolved before our eyes, but these other things, like community's been here from the start from our perspective. So it's really interesting to see that evolution. Like, what are the kind of shifts you've seen as far as the culture towards conservation, the attitudes, the way that we show up as a collective body?
It's really interesting. Like, one of the big things that I think is so awesome is just seeing the expertise that sits within the community. So if you will, outside of Department of Conservation. And that's great. Like, it's just the knowledge base is so huge. So we've seen so much innovation and research and things being driven by community. So for example, this is an older piece of technology, but it's just such a great example. So with Operation Nest Egg, the transmitters that are used to find for North Island brown, the sires that are sitting on the eggs so we can lift them and incubate them in captivity. This was driven out of community. Al Bramley, who now leads ZIP, but he's an engineer by background. He was leading a community-led project and he was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. Him and another fellow developed what is now the egg timer transmitter that monitors the movement of the bird, that tells us what stage of incubation so we can go in at the right time to lift the egg. So there's just that kind of, with so many people working on it. They see the need for it. So we have technically savvy people that are helping develop new apps and technology. So that's been a real shift, and a trend that I've seen it as probably the most significant is just the expertise that is out there in community. Bringing Indigenous knowledge into it as well is quite amazing. And I know you'd argue it's always been there, of course, but the recognition of trying to blend, Western along with Indigenous knowledge is a real strong movement in this industry as well.
That is amazing, all of that community evolution and them just wanting to get stuck in, actively helping out, progressing what's going on. But also Save the Kiwi has grown a lot over the last 20 years. So what are the biggest differences that you've noticed from being a one-girl band to having a small team and then now having about 20 people under the umbrella of Save the Kiwi doing various things?
As you can imagine, quite a change. I always joke that our org chart used to be just one square. That was me. So yeah, look, we've really evolved. I kind of say there's been some major steps of our evolution as an organization. So initially we were a third-party funder, and it was a very important role, right? With the advent of a lot of the projects and the work being done, we were very fortunate with a sponsor like Bank of New Zealand. They did all the fundraising on our behalf. So our job was to distribute the funding, really build as much as we could, support networks, knowledge base, et cetera, for this, growth of the community sector. So my role in those days, I kind of look back and laugh and go, man, it was easy. But at the time I was new to it, so it felt stressful. But I mean, the job was really to distribute funding, do our audit, support the national hui, initiate as much as we could with training. But as you can imagine, with one person in a new sector, there was a lot we still didn't even know about what was needed. Probably the next big evolution for us. So we started to bring in, I think I had part-time admin and we had a couple of people out in the field, but probably the next big evolution and really what set us on the path we're on now was ironically the withdrawal of BNZ as a funding partner. So I didn't realize at the time prior to that, because I wasn't from the non-for-profit sector, how lucky I was to take over an organization that had a built-in fundraising arm that raised all the funds. So for us, the next evolution was really about, we had to start raising our own funds, as most charitable organizations do. So it was establishing a database, it was seeking our own sponsors, our own funding. So that was the next level of growth. We applied to Treasury for funding alongside DOC for additional funding specifically to reverse the 2% decline of Kiwi. And we were successful, not for everything we asked for, but we do have a baseline funding package that has helped us grow that. So that for us was the next evolution and what kicked off our own bespoke piece of work, which we call our Pohanga Kiwi Kaupapa. So for us, it's been this evolution from third-party funder to, of course, growing the team, now having our own flagship piece of work that we drive. So we still support others via annual grants. But for us, having our own incubation facility, our own creche we operate, our own piece of work we drive has really been the game changer. So we now have things that we can tangibly measure. This is our contribution to Kiwi conservation, whereas in the past, we know we are an important part. We're a lifeline to a lot of projects by providing those funding grants. For us, that's been the evolution, really, is maintaining a level of support, driving our own flagship work. And along the way, what that's meant is we are drawing incredibly capable and talented people into our organization who equally love this work. They come with a whole set of skills that mean we can also now build capacity and train others to do the work. It's been quite incredible to see the growth of the organization. I never would have dreamed in the early days that, 20 is still small in the realm of the corporate sector, but for us and where we've come from, we are now a sizable organization.